Hello and welcome to Mental Wealth Conversation with Derek and Lillian. It's here that we discuss matters relating to our mental health and trying to find ways in which we can overcome our distresses and how we can survive and live with others. So welcome again. I am your host, Derek Were, and
my name is Lillian Simiu. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we hope we have a very good show lined up for you, and we're hoping that you will enjoy.
Subscribe to this and other shows on acute.co.ke.
Today things are a bit different. We have
for the first time since we started recording, we have a guest. And Derek, what are we doing today? Well, today we are going to discuss about anxiety. I think it's something that we don't put much consideration into. We don't think it is a serious mental issue that we need to handle, or we need to overcome, or we need to know whenever it comes along the way. So today we're here to discuss about anxiety, and we have a guest to lead the way for us, to help us understand what anxiety is, probably through sharing her story. And at this time, I'll allow our guest to introduce herself.
Thank you. So how are you guys? My name is Laurene Kavai-Dagiza. I'm pursuing a Bachelor of Arts degree in psychology, and I'm so honored to be here today. So we are going to talk about anxiety and how it has been on my side and everything. So I'm so happy. Yeah.
Welcome. And
Thank
just
you.
even before we start, I want to ask Derek. Derek, what do you understand by anxiety? What comes to mind when we say anxiety?
I think I've had this conversation with you before. You're trying to convince me that I've been through some attacks. Anyway, I think I'd say anxiety is more of tension, for lack of a better word, that we experience whenever things have happened in the past, and they keep on affecting how our moods are. Sometimes they can even affect our sleeping pattern, and they can keep us thinking about the same case over and over again. So I think that is for lack of a better word, anxiety to me, and what anxiety means. I don't know about Lillian. I don't know about Ida Giza. Maybe Lillian, you can tell us what anxiety is.
Okay, anxiety is worry about mostly the future, to put it simply. Yeah. But maybe we should hear from Laurene, who has experienced this. Laurene, what would you say is anxiety? What do you experience when you have anxiety?
Okay, to me, anxiety it's a mental health disorder that is characterized by fear, intense fear, and it can actually stop you from doing your day-to-day activities, regardless of whether you are or who you are or the exact place that you are at that time. So you go in the public and you're like, you feel something is not right. You feel like someone is watching you, even if someone is not watching you. You feel like the people who are around you are watching you. You just have that kind of feeling. And if you don't get it in control, you might even start shaking, or you start losing your breath, or you start just sweating. And at times you're like, you can't do this. If you don't get help, or if you don't go somewhere that is a bit quiet and just tell yourself it's okay, it's bad. It's really bad. Personally, I've experienced anxiety, and it's not something that you can joke with. At times I walk into a room full of people and I'm like, I can't do this. But depending on what I'm going to do on that day, I just have to push. I just have to push it and move and tell myself, I can do this. I can do this. At times I really avoid being in public. A lot, because I tend to feel like people are watching me. People are watching my moves. People are talking about me. Even if people are not talking about me, I feel voices. I feel like someone is telling me that person is watching you. This is happening. And at times, I'm like, I can't even concentrate. When you have anxiety, you can't concentrate at all. And it gets to a point, I have to like take in water, take in like long breaths, and I'm like telling myself, I can do this. I might be okay for like 20 minutes. Then it hits me, I'm in public again, and I got the same procedure. So I'm like, I try to calm down, but I've learned to control it. I've learned to like live with it. Some days are good, some days are bad, some days are like, I can't even go out. I'd wake up, get dressed, look in the mirror, I'm like, oh, today I'm ready for the day. Once I step outside, I'm like, no, I can't do this. I go back in.
Whoa.
It's that bad.
Sounds bad. And
Yes.
I would want, maybe people listening to you are wondering, what causes anxiety? What gets you to that point where you experience all these things? Yeah.
Okay, anxiety, it's like, I can't really tell what caused my anxiety. I just found myself there. But for some people, there are triggers. Sometimes probably you underwent something traumatic, or you had an accident, or maybe something happened to you. You were molested as a kid. So anytime you see a man coming, it triggers. You're like, I'm not safe. I can see, regardless of whether you know the person or not, you're like, this guy, he's coming for me, you know. Sometimes a male might speak to you and you're like, he's out there to hurt me. Even if that person doesn't even want to do anything to you. And you're like, it's happening. Or sometimes it's maybe you come from a violent home. Anytime you see your dad, maybe he was violent towards your mom, violent towards you, you have anxiety. Anytime he walks in, the urge of you leaving becomes so strong. And at times, it's about the friends we have, you know, the choices they make us do, or their influences on us, you know. At times you might not even realize how strong your friend's influence is to you until when you're just alone and you're like, I shouldn't have done this. You have these thoughts of regrets, feelings of fear, you know, insecurities. And at the end of the day, when you go back home, that's when it hits you hard. Or maybe you don't even, sometimes you don't want to stay around people because of anxiety. Sometimes you also don't want to stay alone because of anxiety. So you're in between there. And at times you don't want to stay with people so that you can hide your anxiety. You know, sometimes you walk into a room and you're like, everybody is watching me. I need to get out of here. But you can't get out of that place when you have to do something in that place, you see. So now it's a battle that is from inside. It's not outside. I might be seated here right now and I'm having anxiety. You can't tell. It's only me who knows, you see. So that's how it works. That's how it happens. And at times, for example, the 2007 post-election violence, those people who are affected, if you come across one or two, they'll tell you that they have anxiety. Anytime they think of violence, there's so much anxiety because they feel like this person might attack them, you see, because of what really happened. So majorly, that's what causes anxiety. Yeah.
Probably to ask you a question, I don't know, direct it to you and Lillian. Where do we draw the line between anxiety and post-traumatic stress disorder? How do you tell this is anxiety and this is PTSD?
So, PTSD, it's a form of anxiety. It is a form of anxiety. Like, there are around six types of anxiety. So I think I should just go through one by one, and then we'll get to PTSD. So the first one is social anxiety. So social anxiety, a person has intense fear of being criticized or embarrassed or humiliated in every situation. For example, speaking publicly, or eating in public. Some people cannot eat in public. They just cannot.
Are they not shy people?
No.
The introverts.
Actually, social anxiety is very real. And some people, the way she's mentioned, there are different types of anxiety. There's the general one, there's social anxiety. There's different depending on what experiences you've had. And I think social anxiety, you see, sometimes we assume people are shy, but they're not shy. They're experiencing anxiety. They literally do not know how to function. around people. They don't know what to do. They don't know who to speak to. They don't know how to socialize. So it's real. They're not shy. And the way she's saying, some people legit cannot eat in front of people because of anxiety. Yeah. Why are you smiling? Are you?
No, I am a lawyer. So, so there's a common proverb in Luya, no matter what you go through in life.
That is not a Luya proverb.
Eat
You
fast.
guys, it's not a Luya proverb. Please.
So anyway, I think we're learning a lot. I think before we distracted, you were talking about social anxiety and you're explaining to us what it is all about. Yeah, probably you can keep on highlighting the other forms of anxiety.
Yeah, so for example, like speaking in public. Some people are not shy. Honestly, they are not shy. But the thought of just speaking in public, it puts them off completely. Like, I might be a fluent speaker, but the moment I walk into a room full of people, I'm like off. It's like I become numb, I can't even think, I can't even do anything. And maybe Ali had prepared myself to come and speak and everything, but the moment I see a crowd, that's why I draw the line.
Yeah.
Because anxiety creeps in and I can't do this. I can't speak anymore. And people think you're just shy. No, you're not shy. It's anxiety. And then another thing is specific phobias, actually. So one feels fearful about a particular object or situation or may go to lengths avoiding it. Some people, actually, when I was coming in, I was telling Were, I'm so scared of lifts, especially when we are going up, because I get dizzy, really, really dizzy. So some people are scared of lengths, some people are scared of some animals, for example, snakes, and you find other people embracing snakes and everything. So we all have different phobias, and it also, that causes anxiety. And then another one is panic disorder. So panic disorder, a person has panic attacks, which are very intense, overwhelming, and uncontrollable feelings combined with physical symptoms. You see? So for example, personally, I do have panic attacks. Personally, I usually have panic attacks. And
What does that look like?
Panic attacks. So I walk out. Then I see someone is just looking at me in a weird way. That's it. I get panic attacks. Or maybe I might just be seated and I just feel like I'm not okay. I get some worry, I become fearful. Hata kama something has not really happened or somebody has not triggered it, I just become so worried.
Would you describe to us what a panic attack looks like? Like, is it sweating, breathing heavily?
Yes.
What does it look like?
So you feel like you're trembling. Your body is trembling. It's not cold, but you're trembling. And then you start breathing fast. You start sweating. At times you have chest pains. Some really intense chest pains. And someone might confuse it for like a heart attack. It's not a heart attack, but it's just some intense chest pains. Really intense. And at times you feel like your blood pressure is too high. Or you just feel you're becoming dizzy. You're just dizzy. You see, you're sweating, you're becoming dizzy, your heart rate is high, you see. And then at times your lips become dry. So dry. Very, very dry. At times your eyes may start to twitch, At times you're like, it's like something is twitching in your eye. And your hands become so sweaty. So that's how panic attack happens. Your hands become so sweaty. And then another thing, you cannot really support your weight. Your legs become so weak that if you don't sit down immediately, you might fall down. Become so weak. So that's how panic attack happens. And another thing, the fourth one, it's the generalized anxiety disorder. This is just like you're just generally anxious about anything and everything. I think most people usually undergo the generalized anxiety disorder. You see, at times you just wake up and you just have a non-worry. You can't tell, or maybe something doesn't go right, or you wanted to work out something and it doesn't work out in your favor, so you just become anxious, So that's the generalized anxiety. So, and then the fifth one is the obsessive compulsive disorder.
OCD.
Yes, I also undergo this one. So obsessive compulsive disorder, you feel like at times, if you don't do things yourself, someone else cannot do it.
Yeah.
Or rather, at times you feel like if you don't keep on washing your hands, you'll die because of germs, Or maybe at times I come, I put this phone here, and then someone else removes it and puts it in another place. I feel like, no, you've just like done the worst mistake. It was supposed to be here and not here, you get. And then at times you're like, if you don't arrange the house in a certain way, or if you don't cook your meal in a certain way, and someone does it in a different way, you feel like, no, you just don't even feel like the meal is sweet enough, or you feel like the house doesn't look good enough because you like your things being in a certain
particular order. Yeah.
Yes. Or if at all I come and wipe this table and I feel like it's not clean enough, I'd even like spend a lot of time there just trying to clean this space. Or if someone else does it, I feel like they've not done it the way I wanted it to be done.
Yeah, and just to add, sorry to interrupt, to add on what she's saying, these people, if you're out here and you're calling yourself a perfectionist, this is probably where you lie. And I'm afraid perfectionism is not it's not something to be proud of, because it means if you're a perfectionist, you waste a lot of time. You take longer to do tasks. So many people fall there, but also the reason why we are doing this, it's not for you to self-diagnose. Yeah, we're just having a discussion and helping people to have a little bit of knowledge of the different types of anxiety. So don't go saying, oh my God, I have OCD, oh my God, I have social anxiety or generalized anxiety, or whatever anxiety that has been mentioned, because it's not in your place to diagnose people and yourself or even people. Because I see a lot of, once we learn these things, we tend to throw these words around, call people narcissists, tell people they're depressed,
toxic,
and call people toxic. Don't do that. That's not why we are here. So I think it's just important to put this out there.
Yes. So at times it's not really perfectionism or something. Other people, they confuse it with OCD, as she has said. So someone will be like, I think I have OCD. Sometimes you don't have OCD. You just love your things being in a certain order,
You start to know it's OCD if literally you cannot function unless that thing looks a certain way. If a picture is meant to be, let's say, at that point, if it's not that point, you can't function. You have anxiety because of that.
Yes.
Then you probably need to check in with a psychiatrist or psychologist and seek help. So it's a problem when it hinders you from your day-to-day operation. But if you can live with it, then probably you have no reason to worry.
Talking of living with it, I wanted to ask somebody who is undergoing anxiety, be it social anxiety, general anxiety, or OCD, whichever form of anxiety. Is it a day-to-day thing, or it happens once in a while? Is it that like people walk in and say, ule anakuwaga na anxiety, or it's something that happens, we cannot really predict how often it happens, and is it something that it's possible it happens to everyone once in a while, or how do you define anxiety in terms of its occurrence?
I feel like everyone has undergone anxiety. Everyone. It's not really like limited to a certain group of people. At times you might not even be like, it's not anxiety. All of us, we've had our worries, right? I mean, that's anxiety at some point.
Yeah. Kama tu ile, just to interrupt, kama tu ile, for example, you have anxiety about an exam, a proposal. Maybe you want to ask somebody's daughter's out for dinner. You have experienced anxiety at some point. But also, just to take us back, Laurene mentioned anxiety is intense fear. And this intense fear, most of the time, it comes from trauma, experiences that people have had as kids or wherever. The reason why somebody might have social anxiety, it's maybe because they had a traumatic situation in a place where maybe they were ashamed as a kid in front of the class or things like that. So it comes from trauma, from a place of experiences that we've had that have been traumatic, that causes people to have this intense fear and worry that probably the same thing will happen again. And to answer your question now, Laurene mentioned some days are better than others. So different things trigger anxiety for different people, especially people who have anxiety. So there's the normal anxiety that everyone goes through, but there's intense anxiety that could qualify now as a mental health disorder. For that, most of the time it comes from trauma. And it's not possible to say somebody, maybe you'll have anxiety today, tomorrow you won't have. Different things have different triggers. So today you could be okay, tomorrow you could have a bad day. So it's just about managing and coping. Yeah.
And then another thing, you can't tell if someone has anxiety, not unless they open up like and tell you, oh, I go through this and all that. But I might walk into the room and I just sit down, but where I'm seated, I have like intense anxiety right at that moment. So you see, not unless someone tells you, oh, I go through this, you can't really tell.
Or unless you're witnessing them having panic attacks.
Yes.
Yeah. Of which you won't know it's a panic attack unless they tell you it's a panic attack. So, Laurene,
yes,
we've talked quite a bit about Laurene, about anxiety, and I would want to ask, now that you have told us that this is something you experience.
Yes,
I would want to know, how do you cope? What are your coping mechanisms? What do you do when you realize maybe you're having a panic attack or a moment of anxiety? What do you do? What do you do to get better?
So before I answer your question, I wanted to touch on the last bit of the types of anxiety, the post-traumatic stress disorder. So PTSD, it happens after a person experiences a traumatic event. You see, either war, accident, or anything, And so anytime this person remembers whatever happened, this person gets anxiety immediately. Or anytime they see something that is related to what they went through, or anytime they're watching news and they hear so and so was kidnapped, this happened, and they remember they were also kidnapped, they get anxiety. You see, they get anxiety. So it's sometimes they might be healing, but healing is a process. It's just not a one-day thing that you're like, I'll walk out of the doctor's office, I'm okay, everything's fine. Some days you'll experience anxiety, like you can't even tell. And some days you're like at your best mood. So you see, it's a process. It's one step at a time. And the doctors will always tell you, you're not going to walk out of my office today and just tell me everything is okay. No. Some days, or you might even go for months without experiencing it. And then some months it might be heavy on you. So for PTSD, whenever this person encounters something similar to what they went through, it's a trigger for them. You see. So back to Lillian. Yes. So for me, what I've learned how to manage my anxiety. At times when I don't feel like going to the public, I won't go, because public is my number one enemy. At times I won't go, or sometimes I'll go, but I'm just wearing the perfect smile and I'm like, everything is fine. But inside, I'm having this war. Inside, I'm like, no, you can't do this. Yes, you can do this. No, you can't do this. And I'm like, okay, I can do it. So at times, I have to go on with my day fighting anxiety, you see, because I have responsibilities I have to take care of. And my responsibilities cannot take care of themselves if I'm just seated at home. So at times, I carry out my day activities, whereas I'm undergoing anxiety. Other times I just work out. At times I pray. Guys, prayer works. It works. That time when you just dedicate it to God, songs, like you're just there, it works. It calms me down. Or at times I just take a nap. When I wake up, I'll be much better. Or I'd go for a walk. No phone, no nothing. Just walking, meditating. It really works. That works for me. For other people, I can't tell. But for me, that works. Or at times, I just look into the mirror and tell myself, I can do this. Like the self-talk you have. But then I do talk to myself a lot. Whether I'm walking, whether I'm taking a bath. Wherever
by that, do you mean affirmations?
Yes. Okay. And then I'm like, I just tell myself, like, you can do this. You can do this. I say self-talks work. It really does work. Sometimes you don't need a group to talk to. You just need to talk to yourself. Sometimes I just tell myself, sorry, calm down, you got this, calm down. And it works. Or sometimes I take deep breaths, I take in lots of water, and it works. Within 10 or 15 minutes, I'm back. And you can't even tell I was having a panic attack or anxiety.
Let me ask, you've talked about PTSD. I think I also experience, especially when it comes to speed. I think I freak out whenever I'm in a speedy vehicle. Because one, I have an issue with speed. Number two, it reminds me of there was I think 2 years ago we were involved in an accident. So in a way, it makes me freak out. Sometimes I am not even in a position to control myself.
Yes.
I lose my mind in the process, and experience the panics and all that stuff. You have mentioned something to do with I'm imagining I'm now going to a place, or I'm needed to be somewhere, and I have issues with boarding vehicles or boarding matatus or motorbikes. At that point, how do you handle your anxiety? Other than you've mentioned something to do with you take a walk, you do a lot of self-talk, and all the other stuff.
Yes.
But I'm now imagining in that point where whatever triggers me already exists at that point. How do I overcome such kind of anxiety? When I want to heal. Yeah.
So, for example, you are in a vehicle, or maybe you don't want to just be around people. You can take an Uber or something, or if you are not in a position to take one, and you are in a bus, the driver is overspeeding or something, you can just walk up to him and tell him, could you kindly just don't overspeed, because this is something that really triggers your anxiety, you see. But if the driver doesn't listen to you, another option is just like, Ushuke, you take another mat, or maybe you just try and take long deep breaths. It will calm you down. You get? Yeah, because anytime you see a speeding vehicle, you've already been triggered and you can't control it, because it's something that happened to you 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Yes. So the best that you can just do, because you definitely need to get somewhere, and not everybody will accommodate your situation. That's one thing you need to accept. Some people don't take anxiety as a mental disorder. You see, they just feel like, it's just the normal worry. No, it's a mental disorder, and not everybody will accommodate you or whatever you're going through. So one, you just have to sit where you're comfortable, really where you're comfortable, and taking long deep breaths. That will really help.
Also, just to add, Laurene has mentioned a lot about trying to prevent the situation, tell the driver not to overspeed, and avoid the situation, take an Uber, take a walk. But also what you need to understand, the thing she's mentioned is very important. Not everyone is coming to you understanding that you have anxiety and you need to be taken care of. So what we need to do is, I would advise, if you can, get therapy, because therapy, especially cognitive behavior therapy, will help you to rewire your brain, because what your traumatic situation does, it tampers with your brain to think a certain way, to perceive things a certain way. So when you go through CBT, it will help you to overcome the situation from inside, so that even when you're in a speedy vehicle, you're able to have control from the inside, instead of expecting other people to, sort of giving that responsibility to other people. I don't know if I'm making sense.
Yeah.
Yes.
Speaking of therapy, at what point do you realize it's getting out of hand and you need psychiatric help?
First of all, I cannot overemphasize the fact that as much as we are here talking about anxiety, PTSD, and all those things, we are not doing this so that you can diagnose yourself.
Yeah.
And it's important for you, before you say you have anxiety or PTSD or depression or all these things, it's important for you to see a psychologist. They will help you and guide you through identifying what is going on. You might be thinking you have anxiety, but maybe not. Or maybe you don't need that kind of help. So it's important that you see a professional. Once this professional helps you to identify you have anxiety, this type of anxiety, and this is where it's coming from, then they can help you to get the kind of help that you need. So it's important, even before, don't sit for yourself and decide it's getting out of hand. When you decide it's getting out of hand, you go and seek help, and that's where you can now be helped on how to move forward based on what's happening. Yeah.
And then another thing, anxiety, it's not treatable. You'll not go to the hospital and be given drugs or being told after you take these pills you'll be good. No, it's more of just therapy, learning to control your anxiety and trying to avoid things that trigger you, But even if you'll be given drugs, it will be more or less like antidepressants, but it will only work for you
during that time.
Yes, during that time. Once the effect of the drug is over, you're back to your normal self. So it doesn't really have a cure. It's more of just therapy, you learning how to control it and just avoiding the triggers. That's how you can just maneuver through. Yeah. For me, that has worked. It has really worked.
Okay, so now, as we near the end of this, I would like to, for us, each one of us, for us to have a conversation about how or what we would like to tell, for example, someone like Gladness, for example,
Yes.
who doesn't know anything about anxiety. When she comes in contact with Laurene, how should she interact with her? What do we need to tell other people who don't know about anxiety? How to treat people who are living, for example, with anxiety? How to be, quote unquote, sensitive
Yes.
to their needs? And I would like probably to start with you, Laurene. Like, what would you want the next person to know when, for example, or to do when you're having a panic attack, or when you don't want to get in a room full of people? What would you want? How would somebody help you if they wanted to? Yeah.
So one, like, I'd really emphasize on kindness. Everywhere you go, just be kind, because you don't know what someone is battling. You don't know what someone is going through. And the moment you are kind to someone, they might be, okay, I can tell this person I'm going through this. At this point, they might help me. You see, for example, if you're having a panic attack and someone is kind to you, you might tell them, okay, get me a glass of water. This and this will help me. But you see, if you're not kind enough, someone will not open up. Someone will just be like, let me struggle with myself and what I'm going through. So guys, everywhere you go, kindness, just be kind. Asa kama ni chokora on the streets, be kind, just be kind. To every person you're meeting, just be kind. Everything you do, remember kindness. A lot of us, we are fighting silent battles. But the moment you're just kind enough, it helps, it really helps. So for me, if probably I'm in public and I'm undergoing anxiety and I'd want someone to help me, at first, if I don't have water, I always walk with water. See, everywhere I'm going, I always have water. So if I'm not able to reach my water, I'll tell maybe Derek, kindly help me with my water. It's somewhere in my bag. Or maybe get me to a place that is quiet where I can just sit, relax, and I'll be able to get up and do my daily activities. As I said, when I walk into a room full of people, sometimes I get anxiety. So sometimes I like going to a place maybe 10 minutes or 30 minutes earlier, so that I get familiar with the place, I get familiar with the people. So just in case I'm having anxiety between these 10 to 20 minutes before the event, I'm able to control myself and just get in. See, once I've already controlled it, I can be able to get in, do what I have to do, and move on. But the moment I just storm in here, okay, I find here people, and I'm like, no, I can't do this. I'll freak out, and I won't be able to deliver. So most times I walk in a bit earlier than the required time, so that I can calm myself down, I can control it, so that the time when I'm standing up to do what I have to do, I'm good to go. Yeah. So sometimes just prepare yourself prior to whatever you have to do, so that you don't have the attack. It will really help. Just familiarize yourself with the environment you're going to be in.
Derek.
Wow, I think she has mentioned so many stuff. One thing I think as we discuss anxiety is we are all fighting different battles. We are not fighting the same battle. And at times, I think I've experienced where people will be shocked when you tell them you are anxious over a particular issue. They'll be like, you need to man up, especially among men. You need to man up. For crying out loud, as in, how are you scared of speed? How are you scared of women? We don't even ask what triggered, the emotion, or the feeling or the panic. So I'd say we need to be more sensitive when we are around people we care, and even strangers. Learn to just listen, learn to understand the other side of the story, and you'll be in a position to help. Because I think some years back, we were traveling from, I think, somewhere in Turkana, and then that time, it was actually at night, and it was not really safe. We had police in our bus, and it was a tense mood. I remember that period, moving from Lokichar to the Kainuk Bridge all the way to West Pokot, and guys were totally anxious. Then there's this lady who freaked out. I think she talked after 2 days. At that time, I was not really aware about these issues. It was like, unim softy. Like, isn't it to happen mtaani nini? We experience certain kind of things, But slowly and slowly realizing we all are fighting different battle. You cannot use your struggle to define other people's struggle. Let my struggle define my struggle. Let your struggle define your struggle, and just accommodate. And you never know how a difference you're going to make outside here.
Okay, just to add on what you guys are saying, it's important. We can't overemphasize the fact that everyone is fighting a different battle, and we don't know what is going on inside of the lives of people. And the one thing I'd say, for me, I've seen it. Don't, as my friend or somebody who's around me, if you see that somebody's experiencing, let's say, anxiety, don't wish their problems away. Utasikia mtu anakwambia, somebody will tell you, don't be anxious. So I'm wondering, if you tell me don't be anxious, what do you mean don't be anxious?
It is not an on and off.
Yeah, it's not an on and off button that I get to switch off and on.
Yes.
So instead of wishing my problems away, how about try to understand what is happening? Try to understand what exactly is going on and how you can be of help. Just the same thing you guys have said. Be more kind. Be willing to listen and understand what is happening instead of just invalidating people's problems by wishing them away and telling them you'll be okay, don't worry, don't be anxious, it's okay.
I used to be like that 3 years ago.
Yeah, even me, it happens to me. Don't do any of that. Try to just, if you really want to help, try to understand. And if you can't, refer someone to somebody who can help them. Yeah.
And then on that note, like if someone is opening up to you, don't now start telling them about your problems, forgetting their own problems, And then another thing I forgot to mention, another thing that can also trigger anxiety, smell. So for example, maybe I was involved in an accident, and then the smell of blood, anytime I come across the smell of blood, it triggers my anxiety, because it takes me back to when I had that accident. There was a lot of blood spillage and everything. Sometimes perfume. Anytime I come across another person wearing the same perfume, I'll be triggered. Yeah, so smell.
Okay, I think we have talked quite a bit about this. I would want us to just have a parting shot as we end this podcast. I'll start with you, Derek.
I think I'm still processing, information shared today by Dagiza and, of course, Lillian. I think my parting shot is something I've already said. Learn to be kind. Just learn to be kind. And that will be probably the best and the biggest impact you can make to yourself and to other people around you. Back to you, Lillian.
Laurene, what would you like to tell our audience?
Just on what Derek has said, kindness, guys, kindness. Everywhere you go, just be kind, kindness, because there's just a lot that goes on around the streets with people, their battles. So the moment you're kindness, you're saving a soul out there, You might be unkind to someone and you might not know what impact that would have on them. They might end up committing suicide, doing other things without you knowing. So kindness, people, just be kind to each and every person, regardless of who the person is. Be kind everywhere you go, and try to put yourself in people's shoes. Don't always be trying to just pinpointing people, and you're like, if someone does something wrong, you're like, when are you going to grow up? No. At times, try to understand people with their problems and just embrace them the way they are. Yeah.
Okay, for me, I'd say there's a lot of, apart from anxiety, there's other mental health issues that people go through. And in our last episode, we talked about empathy. And I think this is where you get to exercise it. And even as we are saying you exercise empathy, it's also an opportunity for you to be self-aware, because maybe you're the one with anxiety. You're the one who needs to understand yourself better. So decide which one are you. Are you the one who needs to understand yourself and try to better yourself, or are you the one who needs to offer more empathy to others as you interact with them? With that said, thank you so much, guys, for today. I hope that this podcast will be inspiring. It will be educative to the people listening to it. And yeah, we're done. Bye.
This production is done by Acute Media.